Growing up, one of my fondest memories of the holidays were the great meals that were cooked by my mother and my aunts. One of the most favorite treats that my aunt cooked, my Aunt Alice, were candied yams. And to this day, I can visualize and remember the taste of those candied yams. I did at one point ask her how she made them, and she was very simple. Cut up the sweet potatoes, put some sugar in there, and go. And that's it. I've tried a number of different recipes trying to make that same type of syrupy candied yam, not one that was in a watery, buttery, sweet base, but one that was actually in a candied form, in a caramel type. And I could never come up with that recipe. So today I'm on a venture again. I'm going to try a new process and see if this one's going to work. Come on with me and see what we get. The ingredients that I'm going to be using for these candy yams are the basic ingredients that go in most recipes. I've got 3 pounds of sweet potatoes. I've got some freshly ground nutmeg, and that's probably about a half of a teaspoon. I've got 8 tablespoons of butter or a stick of butter, 1 tablespoon of vanilla. I'm going to be using about a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Got a cup of brown sugar and a cup of organic white sugar or granulated sugar. I have about a half a cup of water, and I'm going to be adding my sugars to the water to dissolve. And then I'm going to cook this until it has a syrupy consistency, with the water breaking down the sugars, dissolving them completely. And then once they're dissolved, then the water is going to evaporate to form a nice syrupy type mixture that hopefully will not break when I add it to my yams, to make candied yams. So I'm going to let this cook, dissolve, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to head on over to my counter and peel my potatoes. I'll be keeping an eye on this. I've got my potatoes, and I'm going to be using a peeler. That's just easy for me to do. And we'll go through and we'll peel each of the potatoes, getting all the spots off of it. And then I'm going to cut it into chunks. And I'll come back and I'll show you that process. I've got my sweet potatoes all washed and drying them off. And I'm going to cut them into chunks. And what we want are what I want. I like them to be in chunks as opposed to being ringlets. So I'll just cut through them and make big chunks. These are about yay so big. They could be a little thinner, but I like, and that one's pretty big, so I'll just cut it in a smaller chunk along with that one. My sugar is dissolved now in the water, and now I'm just letting it reduce some so that you can get a lot of that water out of there. So it becomes a little more thick, not maybe a lot more. I've got my sugar mixture to a syrup, and I'm now going to add the vanilla extract and the nutmeg and the cinnamon. Also, I forgot, when I first added the sugars to the water, I also put a teaspoon of salt in there. So this is salted. And I'm going to take this off the heat. And I'll be ready to add to my sweet potatoes. And as I mentioned before, guys, you know, I've never made it this way before. It's the first time. This is an experiment. And what I'm hoping for is that I do get that candied, syrupy texture to these sweet potatoes. If not, we know that this didn't work. This is my syrup mixture. And we're going to be pouring this over the sweet potatoes. Get grass where it's not hot. And we want to make sure that all the sweet potatoes get coated. In addition, during the cook, we're going to be going through and mixing it and remixing it to make sure that it's incorporated all through those potatoes. Mix that all up. And the other thing we're going to do is now put the butter, just pat it over the potatoes, and during the cook it will be incorporated and mixed with the syrupy mixture. I'm going to put this in a cold oven set for 250 degrees, and the whole idea for that is to slowly let the sweet potatoes cook and release their starches while at the same time incorporating all the syrupy mixture with it. Well, my sweet potatoes have been in the oven for about, I guess about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. And I'm really a little bit disappointed because there's a lot of juice in sweet potatoes. And considering that I started out with all that other juice, or water from the dissolving of the sugars, I still got a lot of water in here. They're tasty, they're tender, just not syrupy. Because my syrup didn't come out syrupy, I'm going to do a little cheating. I'm going to reduce the liquid that was in the sweet potatoes down so that it'll be more syrupy, and then I'll put it back on there. Back on there meaning back on the sweet potatoes. I reduced the liquid down to a syrupy texture, and now I'm going to reincorporate it with my sweet potatoes.